This sucks. This sucks. And this hurts me personally for so many reasons because growing up in the 90s, I loved the Venom character. Venom was, at the time, my favorite Spider Man villain. I'm talking about because of the way he looked and just also characteristics about him. Going back and rewatching and rereading some of the old Venom origins and his ties to Spider-Man, the reasons why he hates Spider-Man, I find this character still fascinating. The problem is that every time he's been done in movies, in live action, they've dumbed him down to be less interesting and less cool to where he's been hurt. His image, his reputation, his legacy in the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery, in my opinion, has been hurt forever. The biggest problem I think with this movie, really, the number one problem with this movie, is that they just threw Venom out there. They didn't spin him off from a Spider-Man movie. It wasn't like we had a Spider-Man film where he was introduced as the villain. He was the villain for that movie. He fights Spider-Man. And then by the end of it, he runs off. He escapes. Or by the end of the movie, he realizes, you know what? Being a bad guy is not the way to go. Being a bad guy, all of my anger towards Spider-Man, Peter Parker, it's not warranted. I'm going to go off and go find myself, go collect myself. And that's where you pick up with him in a solo film. Him trying to discover his identity, discover who he is without having the hatred for Spider-Man. But it's important to establish that first. In my opinion, it's important to really show how great he is as a villain first, to then show how much better he can be as an anti-hero. And we skip all of that history. We skip all of that dynamic. Hell, the Spider-Man animated series that I grew up on does Venom and Eddie Brock perfectly. We're talking about a show for kids, like little kids, who is able to portray and convey these layered interactions, these layered emotional depths that Eddie Brock and why he hates Peter Parker, why he feels slighted by Peter Parker, why he loses his job and everything. And then being bonded with the symbiote that also has hatred for Peter because it was just rejected by him. I mean, that's great stuff. And with the knowledge of everything that he knows now about Spider-Man, using that against him to mess with him. Even Spider-Man 3, which isn't great, and Eddie Brock, played by Topher Grace, not good casting at all. And what they do with Venom in that movie is not good either, but it's closer and better than what we got in this 2018 film. Even the Spectacular Spider-Man, which is something that I just watched recently for the first time, they completely changed the dynamic between Peter and Eddie Brock. They make them friends first. So when you see how that friendship dissolves, when you see a different way that Eddie hates Peter, it's still as interesting, even though it's different. It's wild to me. It's wild that some producer sat there and said, yes, let's take the Venom character, let's take Eddie Brock, and strip away everything that makes him interesting to begin with. So that's where you have this movie. And at the very beginning, they show that this astronaut dies. That's obviously where the symbiote comes from space, right? Arrives on Earth. But they say that the astronaut is named John Jameson. Now, we know that in the comics and even in Spider-Man 2, John Jameson is the son of J. Jonah Jameson. But is this movie set in a Spider-Man universe? Like, is that canon? Is there a J. Jonah Jameson? I mean, I guess technically there could be. But because we don't know, it's really confusing. I almost wonder why include this guy's name as that at all in the first place. And if this is in a Spider-Man universe, Logically, you would think, well, it can't be Tobey Maguire because Tobey has already had a Venom in Eddie Brock that is different. It could be Tom Holland because that universe is happening at the same time as this movie, but it also doesn't make any sense because he hasn't interacted with it, and that's connected to the MCU. And looking at the way this movie is shot, looking at how this movie is lit, how dark it mostly always is, it seems like it would fit more in the Andrew Garfield universe. But still, there's a lot of things that make me think that, well, maybe there's just no Spider-Man at all in these movies, which is even more annoying. Now let's talk about Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock, because he's the main star. He's the guy playing the title character. And on paper, Tom Hardy sounds great. He sounds like the perfect guy to cast as Eddie Brock, at least as far as physically. If you think about what he did to himself in order to get bigger, to portray Bane in The Dark Knight Rises, this guy has what it takes. This guy is willing to commit himself. And just as an actor and other things I've seen him in, he's very versatile. And I could not wait to see what kind of performance he was going to give. When you see the trailers look super serious and look like it was going to be this dark exploration of this guy who is being tortured by this parasite that he doesn't have any control over, and it's pushing everybody away from him, and he's trying to deal with it, but then he tries to use it to do good. No. This movie's goofy. The tone of this film is goofy. And the symbiote, which they call it that for some reason, the symbiote is named Venom, which is bothersome or annoying to me as a complete comic book nerd. As a geek, trust me, I know that it's a me thing. I know that it's a little thing. The symbiote itself is not called Venom. They are called Venom when they bond with it, but whatever. It's probably just easier for movie audiences to just be okay with the fact that the symbiote is named Venom. Fine. But when you get to the point where this symbiote, yes, I hate that they call it that as well, he says that he, on his planet, was a loser. He was a loser, and Eddie Brock, at this point in his life, is also a loser, which is why he feels connected to him and why he wants to bond with him. And being somebody that grew up thinking Venom was super fucking cool, who thought that Venom was the creepiest, potentially scariest, and most threatening villain in Spider-Man's history, I don't like seeing him be a loser, or calling himself a loser, or just being portrayed as a loser. And I know it sounds small, but it's like, man, at least make this character look badass if you're not going to have him be a villain. If he's going to be the hero or even an anti-hero, make him cool. Make him somebody that, man, I wish I was Venom in this situation, but no, he's a loser. And the symbiote is super annoying. So you don't even want this situation. You wouldn't even want to be bonded with it. He says we're perfect for each other and that this is why we go together so well. But it's revealed throughout the movie that Venom is slowly killing his host. He's slowly killing Eddie Brock. So over time, you get to a point where it's like, well, they can't be together forever because Eddie will die. And so this doesn't really get addressed later on, especially in the sequel. We don't even talk about this anymore. So why is this introduced? You can have the idea that symbiotes normally do kill the host, and so that's why when this one bonds with Eddie and it doesn't slowly kill him, it doesn't hurt him, that's how you know that they are a match. But no, Eddie is getting sicker and slowly dying through the course of the film. But when you talk about how silly this movie is, when you talk about how goofy a lot of the stuff is, the one scene that perfectly embodies how dumb this film is that damn lobster tank scene. I know some people got a kick out of this, they think it's hilarious, and maybe they even loved this scene. That's fine, but I saw this for the first time and thought, what the hell am I watching? Why is Tom Hardy agreeing to do this bullshit? Hell, some of this I hear was Tom Hardy's idea, just to act so over the top and so goofy that it comes across a certain way. I hate all of this. I don't find any of this funny. I don't like any of this humor. I know the MCU proper, which this is not connected to, by the way, the MCU does get criticized for being too silly and goofy and whatnot, but I feel like the humor here doesn't match the characters. It doesn't match the situations realistically. It just seems like, hey, let's just be goofy to be goofy. Let's just do weird shit, whether it makes sense or not. Michelle Williams is in this movie. What? Yes, Michelle Williams, the Oscar winning actress, Michelle Williams. She's playing Annie or Anne, whatever the hell her name is. Doesn't matter. At the beginning, she's dating Eddie, and they seem pretty serious. I think they're even engaged. But she breaks up with him early on because he used one of her job sources in order to try to find out information on the story that he was writing. But because it blew up in his face, it got her fired. And look, I understand why that is a big deal. I understand that Eddie Brock did break her trust, did break her confidence. He did go behind her back and look this up on the computer. So yes, she has every reason to be pissed and upset. I was wondering if it was enough, though, for her to break up with him and dump him and, end their engagement. But maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm thinking too much on that. I just find it weird that after she breaks up with him, you have time pass, months and months later, and the next time they meet up, she's dating this doctor. And I appreciate that the doctor is not a dickhead. He's not an asshole. He's not a complete piece of shit scumbag that you want her to leave him, or you're sitting there questioning why the hell did she start dating this guy in the first place. He seems like a decent guy. He does. But I don't care about this. Like, why are they here? Right? Especially how goofy the doctor is. It just all seems like an excuse to have these awkward moments between all of them. Michelle Williams is too good for this. I'm not saying an Oscar-winning actress should not be in a superhero movie, a comic book movie, or a Marvel movie, because believe me, I hold Marvel movies very high, higher than most people do nowadays. And so I'm glad that she was willing to do it. I just hate that it's this movie. I hate that the movie she decided to pick, the Marvel movie she decided to pick, was Sony's Venom. She could have been in something better. She could have been playing a character that was written better, done better. Granted, the MCU has had a history of wasting great actresses like Rachel McAdams or Rebecca Hall. I mean, damn, I completely wasted Rebecca Hall was in Iron Man 3. So I'm not saying it's a guarantee. At least she got that Marvel paycheck. So there you go. And for some reason, we get a moment where Michelle Williams puts on the symbiote suit, becomes Lady Venom, who is in the comics, so they are referencing something that's, I guess, comic book canon. But I find it weird. She puts the costume back on to Eddie. Like, that's the whole reason why she put it on, is so she can deliver the symbiote to Eddie Brock. But she does it by kissing him, and maybe the symbiote really just wanted to kiss Eddie. Maybe that's really what's going on, because otherwise I'm wondering, did Anne cheat on her boyfriend? What the hell is going on here? I'm so confused. We've gone all of this time without talking about the main villain. Oh yes, there's a villain in this movie. Riz Ahmed plays this evil, rich, CEO-like guy. That's really the only way I can describe him. He's a rich, evil, CEO-like guy. And I guess you can compare him to an Elon Musk type, somebody who's in the public eye and he's trying to keep this persona, but behind the scenes he's probably doing stuff that he shouldn't be doing. And I even like the idea that Eddie Brock is investigating him, He's a reporter, right? So he's investigating him. He's trying to find out, trying to expose him. He does it in dumb ways where he kind of just openly confronts him in a way that's obviously not going to work. So I am confused on how good of a reporter Eddie Brock actually is. But then you get these scenes of Riz Ahmed secretly experimenting on a bunch of homeless people that they just round up off the streets. And he's killing them because he's bonding them with other symbiotes to see if they can bond together, but they don't. They always just end up dying. And I'm like, okay, cool. And that's where we get introduced to Jenny Slate. What a waste Jenny Slate is in this film. I know not everybody loves Jenny Slate. Some people maybe just find her annoying or whatnot, but I like her. I was really hoping to see her in a big movie like this, get to do something substantial, get to do something to stand out and just, I don't know, be noticed, right? But she's here. She feels bad about what Riz Ahmed is doing because she works there as well. She's aware of it. She sees it. She gets into contact with Eddie Brock and tells him what's going on. She kind of supplies him some information. And then she just gets killed. She just gets killed off, almost off screen. And it's really annoying because why did we cast her, somebody with somewhat of a name, to just be killed off after a couple scenes? I personally think it would have been more interesting if, yeah, sure, maybe she didn't like what Riz Ahmed's character was doing, but she goes off and bonds with a symbiote herself, and maybe she ends up being the main villain. She becomes this female Venom character that, if you want to do Lady Venom, there you go. There's your Lady Venom. And make her the villain. Have her kill Riz Ahmed and have the symbiote driving her crazy to where she starts doing things. And Eddie Brock has to put her down. I'm not saying that would have made this movie 100% good, but it would have been better than the bullshit that we get here. Because Riz Ahmed, you see that this other symbiote that was attached to the astronaut ship at the beginning, it's been traveling across the world. I'm talking about country to country. It's bonding with several different people along the way because I guess it's killing the host that it's onto for a while. Even one creepy scene where it goes on to a little girl. And eventually it just comes to San Francisco, which is where the movie takes place, not New York. And it just bonds with Riz Ahmed. It's odd because it's like, well, why did it travel so far just to bond with this guy? Why did this symbiote pick this guy in particular? He becomes Riot. What a terrible, terrible name. I know Riot is from the comic books, but that doesn't mean that his character is a good villain to go with in your first Venom movie. And even his backstory is not this backstory. So there's so many reasons why this was a terrible decision. Riot is nothing more than just a generic, bigger, eviler version of Venom. And he looks gross. He just doesn't look appealing. There's nothing special about him as a villain at all. And I guess the plan is that he wants to go on a rocket ship, go to his planet, and bring back all of the other symbiotes to Earth so that it can just rule and take over. Okay, sure. Who wrote this shit? Like, seriously, this is the most generic alien plot that we could go with. And the actual fight between Venom and Riot is so messy and gross looking. I mean, I know it's two symbiote characters, so there's a lot of just symbiote goo mushing together. But because the CGI, it's just all over the place, you can't really tell what's going on. You can't really tell who's winning this visually. And it's not the most dynamic big battle that I've ever seen. It just seemed very paint by numbers, very generic. You get a shot of Riot on the ship about to go off. Venom realizes though that, well, fire is symbiote's weakness, so yeah, we can blow it up and kill Riot. That's what they do. They blow up the ship. Riot dies, and it looks like the Venom symbiote also dies, burns up. And so I guess it's supposed to be a sad ending, I guess. But we get this scene at the very end where Eddie is talking to Anne, and you hear the Venom voice inside of him. So I guess Venom didn't die? But how did he not die? How? We kind of saw him burn up. Like, at least show us a flashback showing how he survived, showing maybe what smart, conniving thing he thought of at the last second to escape the explosion. No, he just survived because movie. And because we want to do a damn sequel with this bullshit. And so this makes Eddie lie to Anne, which Anne already knows about Venom. Anne already is aware of everything. She even bonded with it to give it back to Eddie at some point. So why is he lying to her? If anything, she's only worried about him because bonding with it for a long time would kill him. So she's just looking out for him. No good reason to lie to her. And then that's where we get this Stan Lee cameo, which just hurts my soul that one of the last Stan Lee cameos we got was in this shitty movie. In the mid-credit post scene, you see that Eddie was invited to interview this serial killer, and they say Cletus Cassidy. And even though I hated this movie, even though I was so disappointed, so upset with how the Venom character was treated, how the writing of this movie was, how all over the place it was, I kind of perked up when I heard the name Cletus Cassidy, because once again, being a fan in the 90s, being a fan of the animated Spider-Man series, I was all over the Cletus Cassidy character as far as being this sick, twisted, evil character that would eventually become Carnage. And so I perked up over some false hope that maybe if there is a sequel, they could do it right this time. And then I see Woody Harrelson, and I think to myself, wow, on paper, Woody Harrelson playing Cletus Cassidy makes a lot of sense. He's a great actor. Him being able to play crazy, evil, killer, yes, give me this. Give me all of this. And then I see the wig. Holy fuck, this wig looks atrocious. Now, I know if you look up Cletus Cassidy from the comic books, his hair does look big, puffy, curly, red. Like, I get why they were trying to be comics accurate. It's so funny, right? Everything that they put in this movie, this is the one thing they tried to get comic book looking accurate. But the problem was that the wig is too cheap looking. The wig looks like it's something that they bought out of Party City. Maybe this scene was like a last minute thing, so they quickly rushed out to get a wig because it looks cheap. It looks bad. It does not look like a movie that Sony should have been producing. Brutal. I feel bad for Woody. I can only imagine his reaction when he was given this wig to put on. That paycheck must have been goddamn good. And then what's worse, well, almost worse, you end the scene with him saying this quote, "When I get out, it will be carnage." Oh, fuck, guys. I know that's going to be his villain character name, but man, did you lay it on thick enough? Who wrote this shit? This is awful. This is terrible. That's when I groaned and realized, all right, no, if we do get a sequel, if we do see this Carnage, it will not be cool, it will not be fun, it will not be what I've always envisioned a Venom versus Carnage movie to be. The only good thing about this film is, well, one, the design of Venom himself, like Eddie Brock as Venom, he is big, he is muscled up, he does look the way that he should, I guess. Minus the big white spider on the front. But really the best thing about this movie is that Eminem song. Very catchy. I enjoy listening to it. Yes, this movie sucks. I'm so, just thinking about it, that it made so much money. It made over $800 million. What the fuck? Sony, you don't deserve this. You really don't, because you don't know what the hell you're doing. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later.